afternoon. They do
This
it 2
meeting is
hours.
being recorded.
They do 2 hours once a week. And so far they've had 6 people come, and they come every week. Now it's been going on about 4 weeks. So very
Start somewhere.
out to meetings, and that's what we're kind of working on. And it is winter, and I know people don't like to come out. We used to have a community meeting every month or every 2 months, and we've cut that down now because of the winter months, first of all, but because we would never get a quorum to begin with. So things are a little difficult here, but we're working on it. We've got some resistance, but we're being persistent.
Yeah, if I could offer a couple of thoughts. You can have a membership meeting as long as it's just you could call it a community meeting. Don't have to have a quorum. As long as you're not voting on anything.
Okay.
You can have a community meeting just to talk about the community and what's going on in the community and to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
We've got several folks in the community who, as an example, we've got a woman who loves bingo. She runs a bingo night every Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's 20 people there. Sometimes there's 15. Sometimes there's 30. They have it anyway. And it's a bucket card or something like that. And they have pools, and people like the idea of making money. So if you might walk away with $20, $30, $40 or whatever. And we have another group that loves playing cribbage. And there was a Monday night cribbage league, if you will, or whatever. Same people got together and they played cribbage, and sometimes more people would join, some people not. And it got so popular that they decided that another group said, we want to start one on Friday night. So my point is, once you get started, you never know where it's going to go.
I agree.
And having fun is in everybody's best interest, and everybody likes to have fun. So whatever your definition of fun is, playing cribbage, convincing about what's going on in the community, whatever, those are all great starts. And I like when you say you're persistent. That's important, because if you stay with it, sooner or later it will grow. Sooner or later, some of you will move into the community and want to be a part of helping it. I think it's great that you're trying things. I think it's great that you have sometimes it does feel like Mission Impossible. Sometimes it does feel like, you're pulling teeth instead of brushing them. But in the end, these things do catch on. As I said early on in this series, is that nothing happens overnight. Right. And the whole point is that we do know that, we'll talk a little bit about this, but not to jump the gun, but the bottom line is that you're trying. Your efforts are going to be noticed by a few people, and eventually a few more people, then eventually a few more people. But you're beginning what you need. You're beginning what you need to begin, and that is to make an effort toward making sure that your community knows what's going on in the community, and having fun will become a part of that.
I want to say one more thing. The board interviewed a couple today that are planning on moving in, and they are very anxious to get involved, and they're excited about the game day. So that was an encouragement to the board. So
fabulous. I'll talk a little bit about that as well later.
Good.
Okay, we ready to move on?
Mm-hmm.
key takeaways from last week. One of the important things that we talked about is that people in the members in the community are owners of the community. They have every right to know everything that's going on in the community, and you have an obligation to make sure they do know what's going on in the community. So transparency and communication, 49 ways to Sunday, is important because we don't know how people get their information. Why am I getting an echo?
No, you're okay, Kim.
Okay. In any case, another key point was that people aren't engaged in something they know nothing about. People don't know what's going on. People don't care because they don't know. So we have to give people a reason to care. And the reason to care is that they know everything that's going on in the community. And sooner or later, they start hearing that, and they develop in their own minds, well, I think that could be better if they did this, or I think that could be. Boards are afraid of that. And guess what? You want help, but you don't want help. So someone's there to saying, have you thought about doing this? Tell me more about that, as opposed to being a killer of people wanting to help and support. And the other thing is that board members in particular feel like the members expect perfection from them. So they hide their imperfections. I say, if you want people to trust you, embrace your imperfections. Embrace your vulnerability. Embrace the fact that you are human. And when you are, you want to be right more often than not because you won't be a board member very long. But the fact of the matter is that that's why board members work as a group, because they can't blame one person, they got to blame the whole group. So you can share the pain. No, getting serious about this. I've made mistakes as a board member, and I've said it publicly. You're right. We as a board should have done it this way, or should have waited longer. We should have thought it through longer. We're going to rescind that, and we're going to go back to the drawing board on that. And people appreciate that because they appreciate your honesty. So if you want people to be engaged, they want to be engaged with somebody that they can trust. And that's how you build trust. Communication has to be two-way. You know, the old saying goes, God gave you 2 ears for a good reason and 1 mouth. He wanted you listening at least twice as much as you're talking. And as you probably surmised through the last week and this week, I don't do a good job of using the 2 ears I have. But in any case, this is by design on this particular situation. But the fact of the matter is, I need to remind myself that I need to be a better listener, and we all do. So be sure that you have your listening ears, because sometimes people are saying things that you want to discount right away until you really get more information on it. But anyway, key takeaways are communication, communication, communication. We can't be transparent enough. As the old saying, as I always like to say, too much transparency, too much communication is just enough. So anyway, you can't over communicate. Empowerment. Mary.
Thanks, Kim. So yeah, we're gonna move into today's topics, which are empowerment and engagement. And again, just like transparency and accountability, empowerment and engagement go together. And I think we're a small group here this evening, and I know pretty much everybody. Dee, you're new to me, but Pat and Dennis,
I've only met you a couple of times.
Yeah, but I think I can say that we've all got some interest in empowerment, and we can think about how in being empowered makes us want to be engaged. And the same is true for other people. So these are just a couple of simple definitions. But I like to talk about power first. Before we talk about empowerment, I like to start with power. And I'm not sure how others think about that, but I think, some people have power based on position, right? Your boss has power because he's the boss or she's the boss. Your supervisor has power because their position has allotted them a certain amount of power over anyone that they supervise. I think we've probably all listened to some of the conversations that have been had about people giving their doctor too much power just because he's the doctor, he's the expert. We trust that he knows what to do, and we sort of step back and say, no, I'm putting all of my health in your hands, and whatever you say, that's what I'm going to do. My mother-in-law, who I loved very much and was a great friend to me, she just passed away at 102 right before Christmas, and she was fabulous right up till the end. And but when it came to doctors, she would go to the doctor, come home. I'd ask her, well, what did he say about this that you were worried about? Oh, I didn't ask. I just did what he told me to do. Mary, I don't ask those kinds of questions, and that was the positional power. I also think about personal power. How many people here feel like they have personal power?
Yeah.
Kim has personal power. Marjorie says, yeah, I got a little, maybe. Anybody else feel like they have any personal power? Dennis does. Yep.
Yeah.
I think you do, Dennis, by your presence. There's a certain amount of power there. Dee?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Pat?
Yeah.
Personal power. Yeah. John? Yeah, a little, maybe. I come from a big family. There's 9 of us. And whenever we get together, to make a decision about where we're going to have Christmas, or, what are we going to do about so-and-so's issue that needs the family's attention, we all defer to my older sister. She's the oldest in the family, and her personal power, it doesn't matter. We're all in our 50s and 60s now, and she still has more power than anybody else in the group, simply by the fact that she's the oldest. And we give it to her. We just let her have it. Any one of us, I have 4 brothers. Any one of us could say, no, Kate, we're not doing it your way this time. But nobody does. So I think when we start to think about what we've been talking about these 2 weeks, there's a couple of phrases, right? So there's personal power, there's positional power, and then there's those phrases that we all know. Information is power. Knowledge is power. Money is power. People see those things. And when we talk about transparency, that's one of the things that comes up is if we tell everybody everything, if the board puts all the community's business out there for all the members to know, all the financial situation and where everything is going with such and such a vendor, and here's the decisions that we made around this. You are giving power back to the members. And ultimately, if you have folks starting to engage in various ways on a committee, as a committee chair, Dennis talked about the social committee chair, sort of sounds like somebody who is taking their chairmanship, seriously and is working it hard. The board is giving away some power when they are empowering those committee chairs to do what they need to do. And I think it's an important thought process that we go through in terms of this empowerment and engagement. And probably everybody can remember a time when they've volunteered to do something, whether it's for work or for church or for community or for family. And then no, you don't really have the right to do it. You don't have the power to do it because somebody's gonna do it before you get there. All the tables are already done before you walk through the door, or the article's already been written and ready for the newsletter by the time you arrive, or whatever might be the case. The opposite of being empowered when you've stepped up. So Kim, I think you were gonna tell a story about the membership committee.
Yes, I just want to say one thing. If you want all the power, then you have to have all the responsibility. If you want somebody to have some responsibility, then you have to give them some power. Now, we in our community, one of the things we take very seriously, it's a rather large community, and people come and people go, but there's personal information is guarded as much as we possibly can. And we have boards that come and go. They serve 2 years, they serve 4 years, sometimes a little longer, but no more than 6. So they have personal information on folks, but we limit that as much as possible. And one of the ways that we limit that is that we have a membership committee that doesn't have term limits. So they could be around for 15 years. And so it's the amount of information, the amount of people who have information is minimized because in our membership committee, they and they only vet new members. They get to see new members' financial records. They get to see their background checks, their financial background checks, and they get to talk to them personally about how they'd be, whether they'd be a good fit in our community or not. And that's the reason we do that. So what happens is the board has given them the power to decide who can live here and who can't. The board doesn't decide that. The board doesn't even know. The board basically says to them, if you give us your recommendation and you follow all the guidelines that we've given you, then we're confident and comfortable that your recommendation is good enough for us. So when the membership comes and says, these people applied and we don't recommend because they don't fit the criteria that we have, and the board says, okay, then if that's your recommendation, then we don't recommend them either. So deny them, and vice versa. And so our board has given membership not only the responsibility, but the authority and the power to determine who can live here and who can't. Now, they go through rigorous training. They know all the fair housing laws and everything. And that's the other thing. We don't have to keep teaching new board members all the ins and outs of what's fair and what's not fair, because we've got 5 people and only 5 who know all about that. And I'll talk a little bit more about the membership committee later because they have other responsibilities that are extremely important in the scheme of things. But the point of this conversation is that the board has relinquished the power and authority and therefore the responsibility that they would vet people coming into our community as being able to pay their bills and being good citizens.
If we're transparent, empowerment seems to come naturally. It should not be a power struggle. A community is run as a cooperative collectively and democratically. We come to a decision, not one person dictating.
So that's our views on empowerment. And I'm going to just go back to, anybody have any questions on that topic?
Any questions or any thoughts? Something you don't agree with? Something you're afraid of?
Well, one thought I have is that an impediment for people getting involved in stuff sometimes is how they think about power. And some people are stuck with the thinking of a pyramid power. So that's power over, where one person at the top has all the power. And if someone comes into your comes to a meeting and they're just really belligerent, sometimes they're stuck in that, rebellious against the model in their head, which is one person at the top, everybody else at the bottom. They can't have the power, so they feel like they can have it. But in a democracy, it's more like a circle. It's more like a basketball team. So sometimes that helps understand. Sometimes the distinction between the pyramid and the circle helps understand where people are coming from and where it's a problem for them to get plugged into participating. And sometimes it helps for us to think about that and the messages we're sending, and whether we're opening up places for people to get involved.
Yeah, that's really helpful, John.
I think a lot of people, like I've been president in Morel Country Village since it started 10 years. I do it for the good of the people. And I've always been that way. But we've had other board members. We've had a board member sue the park, sue me personally because of something they did, and they tried pawning it off on the park. We fought it, we won, but it cost the park a lot of money. And they were a board member. So as far as empowerment, I would give everybody and any of the board members, if you ask them, a lot of the new board members have a lot more responsibility. Operations director stepped way up. He's making phone calls, that stuff that I used to do. So it's a growing thing, but we really need to, as far as empowerment and accountability, it's all one big pile. Because I look at it that we do everything possible, but then when you get someone on the board that wants to change the whole world and doesn't like this and we don't like that, and it's only one person. They ran for the board and they got voted out this last term, which I really personally thought that they shouldn't even been on the board. When they sued the park, they should have stepped down until it was all done. But I'm an advocate for, I've been to many of your parks before you bought them. So I've been up to Woodlands, and I'm all for this. And I still, to this day, think that it's the community, the people in it are the people that should be running it.
Yeah, that's a great statement, Dennis, right there. The people who are living in it should be running it. And that's really where you want to be. So I'm just going to pass this back over to Kim and Marjorie, because this is some of the ways to get there. Some tools, many of them people have probably used before, but just to think about it. Kim, you want to start us off?
Sure. We have communities with folks in them that we know nothing about them. And we have needs in our community and wants in our community that could be fulfilled if we only knew that there were people in the community who could fulfill those positions or take on those tasks and do a very good job of it. So one of our responsibilities is to be aware of the talents of the members in our community. And there's several ways you can do that. One is that we have in our community, and I think Dennis has a copy of it, a volunteer interest sheet that talks to all the things that people might be involved in our community. And there's, 50 or so, maybe not quite that many, 40 or 50 things on there that people could take an interest in. And there probably could be more. In some communities, there could be more because they're built a little bit differently. Our community has a full maintenance staff, so there are things like, in our early going, we had things on there like electricians. We had people who had electricians license who saved us a lot of money by doing some electrical work in our clubhouses. But the idea is that somehow it's good. You really need to know who is in your community and what talents they have, what hobbies they have, what interests they have. And one way of doing that is to have a volunteer interest sheet.
Pat,
Now-
you mentioned that you had a new member who really wants to get involved. Do you guys use the volunteer interest sheet?
No, we never have. It's a good idea.
Yeah, it's something that, once you're already started, it'd be good if you can get people to voluntarily fill that out. You can take it to a membership meeting and ask people to fill it out and turn it back in after the fact. Some people will, some people won't. I'll talk a little bit later about our membership committee and how they handle it. But you got new members that you have a perfect opportunity to set the stage as to what's expected as a member of your community, as an owner in the community. What's expected in a democratically operated cooperative, and what are the principles of cooperative. So you have a perfect opportunity to start somebody on the right foot, because they're just moving in, they don't know any better, and so let's teach them better. So being prepared to exploit the talents in your community. The point here is never say no. I think no says you don't need me. Maybe says I don't have time for you. Yes says I haven't thought about the need in our community here, but let's talk a little bit more about that. What makes you feel that would be a good need in our community? Just start a conversation. Before you know it, that person could be volunteering to do something that you might not need, but you could use. And most importantly, give them the feeling of being a part of the community, because now they're contributing. Get organized. Think of all the things that you need in your community, and then ask yourself, is that a committee? Does it need to be a committee? Now, also think of all the things that'd be nice to have. You don't need them, but they'd be nice to have. We don't need a social committee, but it's nice to have. And after you've had one for a while, you realize you really do need one. So you need people who, this was mentioned a little earlier. You need people who will take on responsibility, and people who love responsibility, and people who love to be in charge, and people who love, they're generally speaking your committee chairs. There's two things that's important with a committee chair. They know how to recruit, and they know how to empower. If they can do those two things, they probably would make a great committee chairperson. And so when you have a committee, it's important that you have somebody in charge of that committee who can further the needs of the community by engaging others to help and support them. Now, if you have committees, that's great. If you have one or two, that's great, but you need 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever. Every need needs a committee or somebody organized to further that cause. So everybody has a management guide. Everybody has in that management guide what committees should be standing committees, how to set them up with what a good mission statement or policy or practices for that committee. And so if you have that groundwork, that infrastructure all set up, then when you have someone ready that's come into your community or is in your community who's ready to take on that responsibility, you've got a packet to hand them and say, read this, let's talk about it. Matching the right leader with the right job or committee. Generally speaking, you wouldn't ask somebody who is an electrician with 2 left feet to start the social committee in charge of dances for the community. but you might want to put them on a maintenance committee, or maybe even in charge of a maintenance committee. So, it's not a warm body. It's a warm body with some talent in the area that you want them to serve. Sometimes it's just, we're just happy to have you. I don't care. What do you want to do? We're happy to have you. Well, try to steer them in the right direction. So, because your job also is to make them successful. And then when you give somebody a chairmanship, we talked about this before, empower them, give them a responsibility. What you're asking for them is to take charge. You don't want to be involved in that. You want to monitor it. You want them to be transparent about what's going on in the committee. You want them to report to the board of directors what's happening in their committee, and you want them to do a report out for the members at large at every board meeting. Membership, if, in my opinion, membership committee is the most important and the committee with the most responsibility in the community. In our community, it's they even a higher responsibility than some of the board members. And one of their responsibilities in this community is they are a conduit for all new members to understand the responsibilities of being a member in our community. They charge them with the idea that this community is a democratic, resident-owned community, and that means people volunteer. That's why their rents are as what they are, and not like the park next door with an investor owner, where the rent is $100 more. It's $100 less because of a couple of reasons, but one is people chip in and make it less expensive to live here, and they make it more fun to live here. Now, the membership committee is in charge of handing out all those volunteer interest sheets. When somebody comes in our community, they get a membership packet that they have to fill out before they even talk to the membership committee. And it gives us all the information we need to know to get the information we need for background checks, et cetera. And one of those forms that they have to fill out is the volunteer interest sheet. We want to know your interest, your hobbies, your talents at your workplace. We want to know all of that. And so where would you best serve in these different areas of our community? And when they collect those, they make sure they're filled out. And what do they do with those? Well, somebody checks off 3 things that would be of interest to 3 different committees. And they send that interest sheet with all that contact information to those 3 committee chairs. And those committee chairs fight over who's going to get to that person first, because they want them on their committee. So extremely important position. Membership committee, they're the conduit for all new members to get the right idea of what a cooperative is, what the right idea is in terms of what's expected of a cooperative member. And then they get enough information where they can, have committee chairs basically welcome them to the community by giving them an opportunity to be involved. And people love to be involved. Okay, I think I've spent all of my time and somebody else's.
Yeah, we have to move a little bit more quickly. So,
Right.
Yeah,
go
I know.
ahead, Marge, you take it over.
All right. Engage the kids, and the adults will follow for those non-55 plus communities. The need is less important than the willingness of a volunteer. Volunteer interest and talent sheet, which Kim had mentioned. Having fun as a strategy. And seize the moment. Turn an idea into an ad hoc committee.
Oops, I went too fast. Yeah. All right, so let's practice. You ready?
Yep,
Is it my turn?
it is. Kinda.
So
Marjorie.
let me set this up first. All right, go ahead, Kim. You guys do your thing first, and then we'll set it up.
All right.
Go ahead.
Marjorie, I think that we should consider solar panels on the clubhouse for our community. What do you think?
Solar panel? Seriously, Kim? You know how ugly those things are? Where are you going to put it? Next to your house, I hope, because I don't want it next to mine.
Okay, folks, this is what I'm thinking to that response. Is that a dumb idea, or they just don't want anything to do with what I think? Do they just discount who I am and what I think would be a great idea? I guess I'm not into volunteering for this community. Okay, let's do it again.
All right.
Marjorie, I think we should consider solar panels for the clubhouses to save some cost to the community on electricity.
You know, Kim, to be honest with you, yeah, I've heard of solar energy, but I really don't know a whole lot about it. Do you know much about it?
Well, I've done a lot of research in that area, and I've looked at the area that I think would work really well. It's got a nice southwestern exposure, and I think we could save some money. I think we should look into it.
If we were to set up a committee or something, would you be interested in being on that and possibly chairing that committee?
Yeah, I really would. I think that's something that's important for the community. I think I could get, I don't have a whole lot of time, but I think that if you could get me some committee members, I don't know too many people in the neighborhood, but I think we could take a stab at figuring out the cost and cost benefit and have a presentation.
That's awesome.
Wow,
Okay.
that's a way to change stinking thinking. Got another one?
Yeah.
Marjorie, the events committee, if you haven't heard, has got a supper going on next Friday night. And I've had several people come down with a sickness, and I need some help. I know that you've done a little bit of work in this area in your other life, but I need some help to help set up for that dinner. Any chance you could help me out this Friday night?
No, I can't help. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm thinking this is the last time I'm going to ask her to do anything. Well, that's okay, Marge. I'll just ask somebody else.
Marge, what are
And
you
maybe
thinking?
in my head, maybe I was thinking, of all nights, because I love helping with events and doing that kind of stuff. But I already had to change this meeting that I have with my mom already 2 times because of other things, and I can't change it on her again. We have plans to go shopping and go to a hotel, spend the night, and just spend some quality time together. I hate saying no, but hopefully they'll ask me again.
Okay, Marjorie, I'm stuck. I've got a big event coming Friday night. I've got several events committee people who are sick and can't make it. Any way you could give me a hand setting up for our dinner on Friday night?
Kim, I would love to be a part of that and to help out, but I have other arrangements going on that night, and I really can't cancel out.
Well, Marge, is there? I understand. It's kind of last minute, and I don't expect you to change your plans, but is there something I can? If it happens again, can I count on you to help me out in another situation?
Kim, I'd love to. That is my passion. That's something that I enjoy, is
Oh, that's
arranging
good
and
news.
planning
I like
things.
that idea.
It's just that, it was just bad timing this time around. I feel really bad, but please keep me in mind for other things. I notice, from stuff going on, that you guys have a lot going on in this community in the short time that I've lived here. I would really like to get involved.
Yeah, well, it's nice to know that you have a passion for that, because we can actually use you on our committee. So
That'd be great.
I'll call on you again. Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
So 2 ways of looking at a rejection. And the thing is that she doesn't know what's going on in my head, and I don't know what's going on in her head. And we didn't talk long enough to figure that all out. What we tried to point out to you is that there was something going on back in my head, and there was something going on in her head that neither one of us conveyed to each other. And what I may have lost a volunteer, she may have lost a volunteer, because we acted on what we didn't know versus on only what we did know. So the idea is that, and no is never an answer, because no shuts somebody down completely if it's no and nothing else that goes with it. And maybe is almost the same thing, only worse. It's that I don't have time for you. And the bottom line is that there's what we always try to convey is that there's a place for everyone, and we want to put everyone in that place. And there's an opportunity to volunteer for everyone. We want to find that opportunity, because we do really want everybody engaged in doing something positive for the community.
So let's take a minute and see if folks can come up with some other stinking thinking kinds of responses. And then we'll come up with a different answer to those. Anybody hear ones from their community when they're looking for people to participate?
I think Marjorie could have said, she's terribly sorry. She had plans with her mother. However, maybe Jane at whatever address would be able to help that night.
Good idea, Dee.
Offer, someone else.
One of those things, sometimes someone else might be interested, and the person who's asking can say, "Ooh, that's okay, Marjorie, but do you know somebody?"
Yeah, exactly.
What are some objections that you all have heard?
I think in general, if somebody tells you no and no additional conversation is going through, you think that no is forever and always. I gotta ask them, nobody ever wants to volunteer. Nobody wants to help. It's always just us board members that are doing everything versus, did they say no because it was just that one time and that night didn't work? Where if they were re-asked, it could be, if it turned out that it was the next day, it might have been a yes, but you were assuming a no.
Yeah, and I'd like to go back to the beginning, which is getting people to care. And if they care, as an example, the biggest objection is I work full time. I don't have time. I got a family of 4. We do things on the weekends. I just don't have time. Now, that guy loves playing golf. I guarantee he's got time for a game of golf. And that takes 4 or 5 hours. The fact of the matter is that we have time for the things that we want to do, as well as the things that we have to do. And if somebody's caring about the community because they know a lot about it and they know that they need help, there's a greater chance, especially if they love living in the community, that because as an example, I am in charge of the events committee in our community. I've got, 15 ladies and 5 guys. And guess what? At every event, they all show up because it's a social event for them. While they're preparing meals and scrubbing tables and washing pots and pans, they're committing, they're having a good time, and it's a social time for them to be together. So it's not just about the work. It's about, this is our group. These are my friends. That's how it got to be as big as it did, because, I invited my neighbor to join us because, this is where we have fun. So the committee itself is part of the fun.
Anybody Pat, any things you've heard from people thinking you've come across?
No, I've had, that experience. I don't have time. I work full time, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing I would say is over the years, I've been on heads of committees. I was in nursing for 47 years, so I worked with all kinds of people. And I always found that if somebody doesn't want to volunteer, they're not going to volunteer. But if you went personally to them and asked them if they would help, you get a better reaction.
People like a personal invitation.
Absolutely.
I think that's always true.
Very true. Very true. Yeah,
Dennis,
exactly.
how about you? Have you had a negative response that you've had to deal with?
Who are you asking, Mary?
Dennis, I was just seeing if he had one, but he's on mute.
Oh,
I can see his lips moving, but
There
I
we go.
can't hear him.
I think what we've tried a lot of things over the years, and it still leads back to being persistent and keep doing it. When our new social committee, that's really the only committee we have right now, because every time we start one, we had a new home committee as far as what the park was going to pay for, infrastructure wise, we got that, and then that kind of ended. So, but the social committee and the key is the same thing, but the kids, if you bring the kids, you get the parents, because they look up to that. We've had pumpkin carving we paint them because we don't want the kids with knives. We do pumpkin carving or painting. We try to do a little Easter egg hunt thing if the weather's permitting up here. If not, we did it in the office the one year. So, and as long as the social committee keeps persistent, the hard part with me and with empowering people, we have certain board members that, I'll take care of that. Every year we have our property is trees. We have trees everywhere. And so you put one of the board members, I'll take care of that. I even help them, give them the names of the people to call, get some quick price quotes, goes on and on, comes November. Why ain't the trees? Then I got the members mad because we didn't do the trees like we always did when I handled it. That gets discouraging on my end. But then you look at them and you say, well, where's the prices? Oh, well, I gave it to this one. I gave it to that one. Oh, well, I gave it to the other board member. And then their prices come in and it's like, I told you to call these two people. Well, my friend is this person. And then they're cutting 30 more trees or 200 more trees that I know we can't afford to do. And then they're looking at me like I'm the bad guy. So I just look at our budget and I try to keep overhead of everything, but I try to give everybody the chance to empower them people to do their job. But it gets discouraging when it doesn't happen.
Mm.
That's how I've always been. I work 60 hours a week, 50 hours. I do concrete construction, and I've never, ever, you can ask my wife, she'll tell you the park comes first before our house even. So it gets discouraging at times, but then when people step up, like I said, we got a new operations director, the guy, here, give me the phone numbers. He's calling people. He's getting a hold of people. He comes to the board meeting. Okay, I got this. What else? He's excited. And that's
Cool.
the guy we want to keep. And he'll drag some other people in with him to get, I told him, I said, you need an operations director, but we need an operations committee because we have to get, we sub a lot of our stuff out, the lawn mowing for the community areas and because, and then the tree cutting. Them are really the two biggies. And then we have the snow plowing that we couldn't keep up with it. So, but that's encouraging. And then, like I said, the social committee, the young lady that took that over, she's just gun ho. Let's do it. She's setting up a newsletter committee they're going to meet this coming Friday. And I'm like, great, because some of the other board members who aren't there anymore, it's, when I look at it, it's for us to, and it's our park. Like I said, it's our community. So if you people want to step up, we've done our part, keeping the rents low. I think our transparency and accountability on that end has been, we let everybody know. And they're more than welcome to come up and look at the books. They're more than welcome to come and look at where we're at. We have the community meeting every year with our accountant, and he comes right here. He meets with everybody in the community, and they vote on it. We go over it page by page. So, I mean, the accountability part and a lot of that, I think we're on top of it. There's some things we don't do, but we never did.
Well, that's a good segue, Dennis, into because we're getting close to we're actually just a minute over. So I'm gonna just push us forward a little bit. But that is a very good segue into it sounds like that newsletter is just going to add to your communication strategy. And, Pat was thinking about the interest sheet. She's thinking, oh, that's something I might use. And Dee, I think you had something earlier that you were mentioning. So I just wanted to put a quick plug in for something that the Rock Association directors are working on, and Kim has been part of, which is why, of course, he's the person working on this little webinar. But we're talking about putting together a member engagement pilot. And Kim, do you want to say a few words about that?
Yeah, just quickly, we've been working on this for quite a while, but it's not long before it'll take off. The association member engagement pilot program is basically we're selecting half a dozen communities that show promise of being able to improve community engagement and volunteerism. And so the program basically has it selects 6 communities based on criteria. What you're learning in this, if you put a lot of it into practice, that would help you fulfill some of the criteria if you're so interested. It has mentorship. It'll have someone who would mentor with the board of directors, and it's basically a committee within a community that's tackling improving member engagement. And what it does is it generally speaking will probably be a couple of board members, a couple of members at large, and a mentor that would work with you to institute a program, a lot on the lines of what we've talked about, but sort of have weekly, monthly, quarterly meetings and progress reports to sort of keep us all on track. So you'll be hearing about an application process for this. As I said, if you've started to implement some of these things and you're doing a good job of that, you may be a good person to apply for this to improve community and volunteerism and community engagement, transparency.
And the goal really is to test out some of these ideas and see if they work in these 6 pilot communities, and then figure out a way to help continue to expand the number of rocks that are using these techniques, because everybody, there's so many people say to the Rock Association that member engagement is their biggest challenge. And so trying to figure out how we can, support more, something that will help everybody over time. So just keep it in mind. It's not ready to launch yet, and we're hoping soon. And I did want to take a few minutes, if people are not in a rush to leave, to just check on our goals and see how we did. Marjorie, you want to just see, anybody have any thoughts there they want to share with Marjorie and us? People are tired at the end of this.
So creating member engagement is simple. It's not hard work, but it requires a plan that is intentional and unrelenting. Member engagement is not about recruiting volunteers. It's about creating a culture that makes people want to engage and participate. The product is volunteers. Transparency, accountability, and fun are the keys to a member engagement culture. Don't set yourself up to fail. Remember that can't never did anything. And learn about the Rock Association member engagement pilot.
Do we hit him on the head?
Oh.
Dennis has given us the nod.
Yep.
Did we get him, Dee? Thank you. It's good. Get it. See, John, keep it fun. So our last thought was just if people, I don't know, John, if you have a thought about this Leadership Institute, if it's going to continue anything afterwards, but
Yeah, we're gonna have a workshop. We're gonna have a water cooler for operations managers coming up in a couple of Mondays, and then we're gonna do a property manager, how to manage your property manager workshop with Amy Chom.
great.
Yeah. I think for the whole group, it would be good to send out something that says, that talks about, basically the goals of this, and it would be good for at least the folks that are here to, if you think that there's some things that you've learned here that you'd like to continue to do in your community, and one of the things we thought of is that you might start an accountability group amongst yourselves, that you might stay in touch and say, how are you doing on this? I've tried this, it's not working here. What are you doing? Is it working any better there? Sort of just, in anything in life, if you have an accountability partner, there's a greater chance you'll succeed. But nobody wants an accountability partner if they don't want to do the work. Because accountability partner means you got to do the work. But in any case, as Mary said earlier, the one thing that we hear at all leadership institutes and all across the country is that, how do we get more volunteers? Nobody wants to do anything. I'm doing it all by myself. And the whole point of this whole series and the engagement pilot program is to figure out a way. There are people that are very successful at this, and they're few and far between, and there are people who want to be. And so we're trying to come up with a program that from soup to nuts, that if you follow this program and you have an accountability partner, your chances of improving volunteerism in your community are greater. And that's what we talk about. We need to build a culture first, and then hopefully the volunteers will follow. So anyway, I want to just say I'm thankful that you came, and I appreciated having an opportunity to meet you and to share my thoughts.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys. See you
Night.
in a couple of days.
Yep.
February. The rock
Thank-
one.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Yep. Bye-bye.